is no love that is wasted. That a lot of times love can be painful. We talked about how pain is a necessary part of life. It's part of survival. But staying in that pain is not beneficial. Staying in that pain will not allow you to love others freely. And so a big part of love and a big part of loving people freely and loving people like you've never been hurt before is forgiveness.
Forgiveness. You're right. Yeah.
We can't talk about love without talking about forgiveness, right? How do you love people when you have been hurt? How do you love people through the pain? And one of the biggest keys to that is learning to forgive. I think that our human nature, we want this to be a two-person experience, right? We want an apology. We want somebody to say, I'm sorry. We want the behavior to change. We want all of these things. And when we don't get those things, we are tempted to hold back in our forgiveness. We don't want to do that. But as Christians, one of the core elements of our relationship with God is actually forgiveness. We would have no relationship with God at all if he didn't reach out and forgive us, even in our sin. Waiting on the other person to apologize to you before you forgive them is going to cost you your mental freedom. That's why we have to learn to forgive, even if there is no apology.
Have to.
Because the reality is that when you get hurt, it's your responsibility to steward your heart and your spirit well, because no one else is going to do that for you. Forgiveness isn't a thing that you just do once and that's it. It's not a one and done situation where it's like, I've already forgiven you. That's it. You used up all your chances. And it's not something, even for, one offense, sometimes you have to find yourself choosing to forgive again and again and again. Jesus tells us that in Matthew. He tells it, he's asked the question, how many times do we have to do this? And he basically says, you have to do it again and again and again and again. There is no amount of forgiveness that's too much or enough. You have to be generous with your forgiveness, no matter what. In Proverbs, Chris always says this too, it's one of his favorites, is the world of the generous gets bigger and bigger, and the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller.
Let's be generous with forgiveness. If I could learn to be generous with forgiveness, it brings so much clarity within my life. It allows me to love unconditionally without strings attached, like we talked about last week. I love it so much because if you want to be stingy with your forgiveness, you're going to live a small life. You're going to be isolated with nobody around you. But if you want to be generous with your forgiveness, guess what? Your world's going to get larger and larger and larger.
A true sign of forgiveness is when you remember their faults and offenses, and you say in your heart and in your mind, God's grace is bigger than what they did to me, and it's bigger than how they made me feel. And I think that forgiveness is you relating to someone according to their God-given identity, not the identity that you have given them. Forgiveness refuses to reduce people to their mistakes, their shortcomings, and their aliases that hide their true identity and their true worth. Forgiveness it's choosing honor above vengeance.
Say that one more time.
Forgiveness is choosing honor above vengeance.
I'm gonna tell it. Write that down. Whenever something like this in my life occurs, when I need to forgive, I'll always go at it head on. Or I see this giant, I'll go at it head on instead of going backwards.
Right.
If you can head this on and be that person, whoever has caused you pain, and once again, this is a relationship aspect. We're not talking about abuse here, okay? We're talking about a friendship. Something has happened. Go at it. Be their biggest fan. Be their cheerleader. Cheer them on, because God wants us to cheer people on, to lift them up, to say, you got this. I'm here for you. I still love you. And I know that can be challenging at times, but trust me, you will feel so much weight if you hold on to unforgiveness. But you will feel freedom when you can release it and cheer that other person on.
We have to remember things from the past in order to grow and move forward, in order to hit it head on. But we don't have to allow those memories to control the narrative. We can't allow the pain of the memories to stay louder than the things that we learned from the experience. The pain can't be the loudest thing. The lessons that we learned, the things that we learned in that experience need to be louder than the pain. Otherwise, we're going to remain a victim for the rest of our lives. That's all we'll ever be, is just a victim of this thing. Maybe you've been in these certain situations in your life that require forgiveness, but they also require a severed relationship because it's not healthy for you to be in it anymore. I have experienced things like this in my life where I have had to forgive people, but it didn't even require a conversation with them, right? Like we said before, forgiveness is relating to somebody according to their God-given identity. So it's a matter of saying, you know what, God's grace is bigger than what you did to me. I'm not going to hold on to the anger anymore. I'm not going to hold on to my bitterness. I'm going to release that, and so that I can have control of my narrative, of the things that are happening in my mental state. I'm not going to allow that thing to hold me down and be a burden anymore. What happens in your life and in your things is not my burden to carry. It requires you to want what's best for that person. We don't forgive to erase the past. That is not the point of forgiveness. We forgive because Jesus forgave us.
Jesus forgave us. Ephesians 4:32 says this, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you. Forgave you.
We have to forgive one another as quickly and thoroughly as God and Christ forgave you.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. I think once you really know what God has done for you, you are so grateful for that forgiveness. Once you really recognize how broken you are and all the messed up things you've done, and you realize that I can be forgiven for all of that, it allows you to want to give that forgiveness more freely. The other reason that we forgive is so that Jesus can be seen, right? We forgive because Jesus forgave us, and we forgive so that Jesus can be seen. We can't hold grudges or seek revenge. We have to.
And here's the reality: like, when somebody does cause harm, that's the first thing we go to. And if that's not you, boom, you are amazing. You're a saint. You're an angel. I don't know how you do that, but I will tell you this: I hold a grudge quickly instead of forgiving quickly. I cause this like bitterness within me. It comes really quick, and I know that I got to hit it head on. Otherwise, that will eat me alive. That bitterness will actually grow in me and cause me to stop loving people. And in fact, it almost blinds me because I'm stopped. It's almost like pressing pause to some degree. Like unforgiveness will pause you, and you can't get to your next step.
Right.
You just can't because you're blinded.
Forgive because it sets us free, right?
Woo!
It allows us freedom from bitterness. It allows us freedom from that burden. When we refuse to forgive, we become slaves to bitterness. And I think that we end up taking on the burden of something that we have no control over. Forgiveness isn't about freeing these other people from their offenses and their mistakes. It's about freeing yourself from giving that thing power over your life anymore. It's allowing God to move in your life. I think that when you are free from bitterness, that's when you can live a life of joy and freedom and love. It's when you can just love people wholeheartedly, the way that we were meant to love them. When we forgive, it allows us to love authentically and freely and wholeheartedly. That's the mission of our church.
It's our mission. That's why it's our mission. I think for all of us, like, we want to love like that. We want to love where there's no strings attached, where it's freedom in it, and you can just pour out all of your love on people. But if you can't forgive, that does not exist. That bitterness will isolate you. It will trap you in. And the only person that it is harming is you.
We have to let go of what was in the past, and so that we can grab on to the future. If we want to love people authentically and wholeheartedly, if we want to embrace the people that are in front of us, we have to let go. If we're holding on to all of that pain and bitterness from our past, we don't have hands free. We can't embrace the people that are right in front of us. We can't love them with our whole hearts because we can't. We're holding this up. We're holding onto a wall. We're holding onto our bitterness and our anger. We have to let that go so that we can have free hands to embrace the ones that we love, the ones that are right in front of us right now.